At first, I want you all to think of yourself as slave ship sailors. Now, slave ship sailors, being involved in the slave trade, you're right at the bottom of a hierarchy. And the slave ship sailors were often sailors on slave ships because they were in debt, or they were ex-prisoners, or they were just out of the navy with no job. So the first thing I want you to do really is to think about those slave ship sailors. And they go to Africa, and off the coast of Africa, there's real dangers for those people. Anyone can think of what would be the major danger off the coast of Africa to people coming from Europe? What would they be encountering for the first time off the coast of Africa in terms of conditions? Okay, what they'd be encountering is a whole different disease environment. Okay? Lots of diseases which they never have come across. Yellow fever, malaria, etc. So you 20 people are going to represent those 20 sailors. So I'd like you all to stand up. And I'm going to stand up too. And just to give you an idea of mortality, we're leaving Liverpool, which is one of the major slave ports. Liverpool sent out over 5,000 slave ships, often with 300-400 slaves in them. They would go to the coast of Africa and they would trade with the Africans or trade at forts there, and they would send out goods, trade goods, and exchange those goods, often things like kettles, hats, cloths, guns, alcohol, for the African slaves. Okay, you 20 people are representing the crew on that slave ship. Can you two sit down, please? 10%, around 10% of the crew never even made it to Africa. You know, the crew that they were picking up were in such a bad condition often, you know, they're debtors, they're just out of prison, etc., that they, you know, die off the coast before they even get to the coast of Africa. Could you sit down, please? You get to the coast of Africa and you're having such a bad time that you run away off the coast, even though there's what is there for you on the coast of Africa. Occasionally they have black sailors there, and maybe the black sailors are deserting because of that. But really, you've deserted because the conditions on board that slave ship are so bad. You're often fed worse than the slaves. The slaves that you take on board are more valuable than you are. Okay, so 3 of you are dead already. Could you 3 sit down, please? You're really unfortunate. You didn't do the sensible thing and run away, and you contract diseases off the African coast, and you're dead already. So we've now got 6 of you, nearly a third of you dead already. Okay, just off the coast of Africa there's an insurrection. It's a failed insurrection. Most of the revolts on board slave ships failed, but in that insurrection you die. You're killed by the Africans who are trying to fight for their freedom. You see that already a third of you are dead. Right, you take the slaves across, another one of you dies. You can die on the way across, just of a disease caught in Africa, which you know has carried on. Okay, you two. We got to the West Indies. We've offloaded our cargo of Africans. We don't need you anymore. There's no Africans to look after. Basically, you're our worst sailors. We pay you off in the Caribbean. You've never been to the Caribbean before and you're just left stuck there. How many have we got left? 3, 6, 9, 10. Often, on slave voyages, half the crew would die. Slave ship captains and slave ship mates even, the hierarchies in the slave ship would die as well. The common crew would die more quickly, but often a slave ship captain would die on his 2nd or 3rd or 4th voyage. It's bad enough for the crew. What I'm just trying to show you is the mortality rates are high generally. But if you all sit down again, all of you sit down. What we're going to do now is we're going to do a story of the slaves, which to an extent is a very much more important story. Why I do the story of the slave ship crew is just to show you that although obviously those people were engaged in an awful crime against humanity. Some of them weren't even choosing to be there. You know, they were in debt, or they came out of prison and were immediately press-ganged onto those voyages. The people, some of them were in it, though, for profits, and they made tremendous profits. If you were a slave ship captain, you'd make £3,000 or £4,000 on a voyage. In order to translate that to modern currency, you need to add 2 noughts. £400,000. One voyage, a successful voyage could make you. Okay? And why they're making so much money is, in the Caribbean and in the Americas at this point, they're making sugar and they're making cotton, they're making things that people want in this area, especially the cotton, and those are making super profits based on the fact they're not paying wages, these slaves are working for nothing.